Hello, Alicia. How you doing?
I'm okay. I am running today.
Today is one of those crazy days, everyone. It's interesting. Welcome to the Canadian Immigration Live Q&A here with Alicia Backman-Bahari and myself, Mark Holthe. We are both immigration lawyers with Holthe Immigration Law, and this is sponsored by the Canadian Immigration Institute. So we'll wait a few minutes for people to connect in. You guys will remember, traditionally, I have this nice little wheel, this countdown timer, right? Well, I purchased that countdown timer from another provider who creates these overlays for our live streams. And apparently someone else registered it with Facebook. So although this is being broadcast to LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and, and YouTube, Facebook is the bane of my freaking existence. I am so fed up with Facebook. But anyways, anytime I do a video, you'll watch it as a recording on Facebook, and it'll have some other user tagged to it saying that this is actually their video. I'm done with it. So there we go. Anyways, we've got a few people. We'll do some shout outs here as we let people in and as they discover that we are now live. Gooner Boy, good to see you. We are doing great. We've got Alicia here who's also tuning in. Hello, Alicia. She says, hello, Mark and Alicia. Hope all is good with y'all. Hey, that's interesting. Nice. Y'all.
Very
I love
Canadian.
that. Yeah. Divine, good to see you. And Divine, where are you connected in, Carlos? It's interesting. If we're broadcasting here at 11:06, it's probably at least 11:36 over in India, I think is how it works. It's about 12 and a half hour time difference. So we appreciate you guys tuning in from all over the place, all over the world, globally. And those of you who are getting ready to post your questions, we're going to talk about a couple little things. So hold off on posting them until we give you the green light. Oh, all right. The Surah is here as always. Good to see you. Celebrating Sinhala and Tamil New Year in Sri Lanka today. That's awesome. Great to have you, Surah. I think you're like the last one, aren't you, my friend? Of that group of express entry candidates that we had in our DIY course. Surah, I think you're the last one that's waiting, I think, my friend. So close, so close.
I
All
had
right,
a
let's see.
consult, Mark, with another client that this morning that's just got their passport request. So that's coming. It's on its way, and he's almost here. He's almost there.
Yeah. So many of you are just at the tail end, and it has been one long, long journey. That's for sure. All right. Yes, we got Facebook. Mizanul, it's good to see you. Hello. And Ami is connected in. Good. He says, good morning, Mark and Alicia. And we also, Alicia and I want to give a shout out to all those who are watching or who are listening to this on the Canadian Immigration Podcast. And it's nice now. Phil, our video editor, is if you watch the Canadian Immigration Podcast feed, you'll see that there has been a number of episodes that are going to be rolled out day after day after day as we get caught up to the videos that we are launching. And so if you can't tune in and watch this on YouTube as a video, don't hesitate to slide over and subscribe to the Canadian Immigration Podcast. You can listen to it on iTunes and on Stitcher and wherever else you listen to your podcasts, where you can probably find us. So the audio version is available as well. All right. Hosea is representing Namibia. Fantastic. Welcome in. And we've got Nisha from Toronto, and Veda is here. Rashmi, yes, this side. Hope you both are doing well, she says. Awaiting that spring news badly. And we talked about that in my live yesterday, Alicia. I kind of went through at the beginning and said, okay, here's the questions that probably 60% of you are asking. So here's the new processing times. Here is kind of an update on where we're at with the new post-grad work permit, which there is no update as of this date. And things are not moving forward yet with the Outland or the no program specified draws for express entry. So there's another update, because if you ask questions about that, we don't have anything to add. no insight, although there have been some updates and some changes. And so let's slide over here, Alicia, and you can talk a little bit about some of the more recent changes. So yesterday we did have a draw.
And it was all provincial nominations, right? So this is only in the provincial nomination programs, and those are across Canada. But take a look, there was quite a few, 787. So the minimum CRS was the 782. And the reason that that CRS score is so high is because you get 600 points if you get a nomination from a province. So take away the 600, and people on their own had 182 points.
Yep, exactly. All right. And then the other thing is right here. So.
So take a look, guys. If you have an application to immigration that you want to get filed, file it now because the fees are going up. So immigration federally, the Canadian Immigration Federal Government is going to be increasing IRCC fees as of April 30th, 2022. So the end of this month, all those fees are going up, all the processing fees. So they have said that, every 2 years they will adjust the application fees because of inflation, and they're doing it now. So take a look. These fees are going up for the applications for processing fees. Instead of, it's, I don't know, I guess it's about $100 or $500 overall. Yeah. So application processing fee is now going to be $1,325. Of course, keep in mind that if you have dependents, that amount gets compounded, right? So an extra few $100s per applicant might make a difference when you look at the overall fees. Yeah, including your dependent is now going to be $225. So if you want to save a little bit of money, submit soon.
Yeah, it looks to me like biometrics haven't changed. So biometrics appear to be, I think, relatively the same, I believe. Yeah,
that's the same as before. Yeah.
Yeah, so they haven't changed. But yeah, and remember everyone, it's April the 30th that this kicks in. So if you if you have an opportunity to submit your application and you can get it in before April the 30th, then you're going to be able to benefit from slightly less processing fees.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, let's see. As far as updates, we really don't have a lot more. So, Alicia, why don't we just dive right into the questions that we're getting from all of these fine people all over? And like I said, we get the feed, it comes in, and we pull everybody as best we can. We try to identify the questions, you guys, that are going to be the most benefit to everyone. And so if you're wondering, why was my question not answered? It may have been one of, let's see if I can find the right one of these questions, which is really legal advice, where you're asking us something that's really specific to you that requires a whole lot more analysis on our part. And really, it's something that's only going to benefit you. So those types of questions we tend to pass through. And also because the feed is coming from everywhere, we don't necessarily see everything. So Lavanya here and Syed, who are also connected in on Facebook, they're coming from the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. He says, any authentic consultant here in Pakistan that you can recommend? I love that. That is so good. Well, the reality is you probably don't need to hire someone in Pakistan. We can help you virtually as we do with everyone all over the world. So that's probably the best suggestion. Yes, no, we definitely can't recommend anyone over there. So yeah, so I'll try to do a better job of pulling out those on Facebook to let you guys know that we see you, we hear you. And Lavanya says here, I had applied for a student permit visa thrice and got rejected. And, it's very, very likely if we go back, Alicia, to our, let me just see if I can pull this up here. Wow. My Google is not working as good as I had anticipated it was going to work for us today here. So bear with me as I search around to try to find the various pages. And it looks like this one is just slightly, I'm just going to see if I can adjust this a bit. There we go. If you go to resources, Alicia has, as we've talked about before, drafted that excellent blog post right here on the top 10 reasons for study permit refusals, basically in Canada. And if we go back to this question, I'll bet you any money, Lavanya, that one of the reasons Alicia had given in there is one of the ones that resulted in your application getting rejected. All right. Okay, let's see here. Sean is also tuning in from Facebook, so we've got a little bit more reach. That's great. Joe, when do you board the flight, my friend? I know you are getting ready to catch a flight to come to Canada, and not as a permanent resident, right? But to take up a new position on a work permit, and then waiting for your PR to be finalized. Okay, let's see here. Let's dive in, Alicia, and let's get into some of these questions. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting one from Fox, from Herb Fox. It says, is IRCC only selecting candidates based on occupations in demand? And
Yeah, so this is interesting. I was meeting with some other immigration lawyers across the country yesterday, and we were talking about this because it does seem to be, especially for example, so BC, their PNP program is shifting towards more of a specific occupation. So they're pulling more applicants from very specific national occupation classification codes. And it might be that this is kind of foreshadowing a trend for what immigration is looking at in terms of they want specifically qualified individuals to be offered permanent residence. And so sometimes right now the provinces are doing that. Various provinces across country have occupations and demand streams, but it might be that, things might get tweaked a little bit federally too to try to hone in and target certain occupations and demand also. So it's possible that's coming.
and we know in the budget from, I think it was last year, there was, or maybe it was even a year and a half ago, there was money allocated specifically for express entry for the purposes of rolling out some form of occupation targeting within express entry. So it's not surprising at all that that immigration would look at moving forward in that direction. So
So
follow the money.
yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Fox, it's not specifically that they're only doing occupations in demand right now. They're only doing draws for provincial nominee programs. And provincial nominee programs, there's multiple provinces and territories, and each province and territory has multiple streams, usually about 4 or 5 different streams per province or territory. So they are pulling from whichever ones the province has decided to nominate.
Yeah. All right. Next question is from Sean. And Sean says IRCC has stated that if I find any issues with uploading, I should refer to the web form. Can I upload the documents in multiple web forms for an ADR as I have only one space in my GC account? So, what's your thought process on that one?
Yeah, and I mean, this is almost one where it requires some advice and some specific information on in terms of what did they ask for, how important is it, do you have a deadline, and how are you going to provide that information, best provide that information. But in general, this is an issue with respect to file upload size, right? So if they're only giving you one space in your GC account, or sometimes there's an error on their system where they actually won't give you the space at all. And so the only thing that you can do is do the web form. So you're going to want to get that information in any way you can and prove that you got that information in. So upload absolutely whatever you can that's essential to respond to their direct request in your GC account, and then refer to the fact that the rest of the information is going to be coming by web form if that's the only way that you can do it. There is various compression software that you can get, right? You can try to reduce the file size of your documents as much as possible. And if your IRCC web form request is getting maxed out, then you might have to do multiple requests for their web form as well. So just keep track of everything really carefully and prove that you have provided immigration that information within their deadline.
Excellent. All right. Zipping down here, we'll pull up another question. Frederick has got a comment here. Says, thank you for your advice. Tuning in from Kenya. So thank you, Frederick. We love to see all of the different continents that you guys are connecting in with. Okay, this one's from Narinder. And Narinder says, what about caregivers pilots?
No. Oh, caregiver programs are a little bit of a nightmare, I'll be honest. They haven't been moving them very well. It's highly complex because they had about 3 different caregiver programs. They've phased out the older caregiver programs. In some circumstances, there's still a possibility of applying for LMIAs, but it's occupation specific. Um, the processing times on these tend to be extremely high. So there's not a lot of good news on the caregiver pilot front, I'm afraid.
Okay. And we have Engineer Salam here. And once again saying, sorry for posting the same question over. I just want to let you know that I'm still unable to join the community in the DIY course. Okay, Salam, I think the biggest issue here is understanding that what we did for you was we updated access to the course. So we moved everybody that were in the legacy courses over to one that just doesn't change. So access to all of those videos in the Express Entry course are always there for you. When it comes to the private Facebook group, if that's the one that you were having trouble accessing, you actually have to go to the Facebook group and request to join the one for that particular cohort, that period of time that you'd registered originally for the course. So what I'll do is I'll go to that one and I'll have to look. I can't remember which one you were a part of. I'll go and I'll look, and then you go and request to join that group. Now, you can go in and you can watch the past live streams that we did, those 5 hours of live streams associated with it. And you can watch all of those as a recording. But within that group, there isn't live ongoing support. It's only for that week period that the live course takes place. So figure out which one you're in, request to join, and I'll make sure that I add you in there so that you can have access to that. But there isn't an open-ended one. We're looking at doing something like that, but at this stage, it's not quite here. So head on over to that Facebook group. I'll watch for you, and then I will add you into that group so that you can see those past recordings of the lives that we did. And that's why we continue to cycle through these, because the most important part of all of the Canadian Immigration Institute masterclasses is the live sessions. It's where you have a chance to join in and for literally 5 hours have direct access to myself to ask whatever questions you want about the course material and really fine tune any aspects that may not otherwise be covered in the on-demand portion. And so, yeah, and that's a nice segue into the fact, and I'm going to pull this up here quick as well. Let's see here. Our Canadian Immigration Institute. I'm going to flip the screen over here. Okay, we have our next live Express Entry. Today's the 14th. On April the 25th to the 29th, the card is open. You can jump in here right now and register for that. And during that week from 4 to 5 p.m., because it's starting to get a little bit more sunny, although the weather's been pretty miserable here, it will give me time to go out and actually spend a little bit more time with my family outside in the evenings during the week. And so we're going to move that to 4 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And as always, the courses are accredited by CICC for the purposes of immigration consultants. And so you'll get up to 5 hours of, professional development credit for that. And you can scroll right here down to the page, and there should be links in the description of the video here to the course, but which discusses everything that's in there, all 642 minutes and 5 hours of live master classes, all with yours truly. So that is going to be launching. And if you register now, it's far, far better to do it now in advance, because then you have lots of time to go through the videos, figure out what your questions might be, and then queue them up and then just hammer me with questions all throughout those evening live streams. So there we go. So thanks for the segue into that one, Salam, and we'll get you sorted out. Okay. Oh, yes. And Deshesh says, stay warm in spring. We had snow here in West Coast. Yes. And that's actually another interesting thing, because Alicia, the minister, what did he say? Remind everybody what he said in terms of when he was going to start FSW draws again. What did he say?
Yeah, he said that the draws would be happening again in the spring. So technically the spring goes until mid-June.
Okay, so let's see right here. And this is what I'm going to do. Check this out. This is how we roll live. When does spring end in Canada? Okay. All right. So there we go. So technically, technically speaking, we could have June 20th or June 21st, and the minister could still keep his promise. So I'm calling it a promise now because, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm sticking to that. All right. Okay, let's pull up another question, or in this case, a comment. The Surah says, just logged into my EE profile now and saw there's a ghost update. Oh, yes, the dreaded ghost updates. Alicia, any thoughts on ghost updates for people that experience them?
I had a client that I was talking to on a actually we were finalizing his study permit application, and his sibling had also applied for permanent residency a while ago, and that's the only movement that's been on his file is another ghost update. And he said you should mention that. Tell people that that's all they're doing is ghost updates right now.
Yeah. Pain and suffering, right? That's what they're requiring from you guys. Okay, Steve says, hi, Mark. I have a CRS of 514 and work permit will expire in August. In worst case scenario, is it sensible to go back to my home country and wait until they resume CEC draw and apply from there?
So Steve, I wrote a whole giant article just for people like you in your circumstances. And if you go back to our website, to the Healthy Immigration Law website, and you go back to resources, and you go down to blog, yeah, it's called How Long Can I Stay in Canada After My Work Permit Expires? Because we know your work permit's going to expire within a few months. What are the other options that you might have? I've got some things that you should check and look at right away. Is there a possibility that you might be able to switch to a different type of work permit if you have an employer who might be willing to support you through either the International Mobility Program or maybe the Temporary Foreign Worker Program? So then you get into the LMIA world. But yeah, in some circumstances, if you don't have any other options, then maybe it is best to go back home, get some foreign work experience. If you already have that CRS score of 514 locked in and you're sure that you've counted for it properly, that's the big thing. Just make sure that your calculation is sound and you have properly claimed the points that you think you can claim. But otherwise, yeah, you might return to your home country. If you do switch to a visitor status, I've had some clients who just decided they're going to switch to visitor status. The problem with switching to a visitor status is if they do start draws, let's say they start draws next month in May, and you get an invitation to apply, you've got 60 days to submit your EAPR, and you've submitted your application for permanent residency, normally you'd be able to apply for a bridging open work permit. But if you have already switched your status to a visitor and you're locked into that visitor status, you can't benefit from that bridging open work permit because you have to already have a valid work permit, or you have to be able to restore to a valid work permit. So it is a tricky situation. Take a look at my article. If you need specific advice, we're always happy to talk to people via consultations.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll just pull up here and remind everybody, regardless of what source you're looking at, you're watching this live stream, remember that you can always go to our channel and search just about anything. So if you search just a term and pull it up, work, there's often, it'll pull all kinds of different videos. Will your work permit expire soon? Learn what you can do now. So not only did Alicia provide this excellent blog post here, but we did a video on that as well. So you can go and you can watch that and just, we're constantly putting out content and trying to give people as much advance notice of what's happening and at least provide some general suggestions and direction on what you can do. But at the end of the day, when you're trying to make any really difficult decisions, the best thing in the world for you to do is to slide over to our website and click on the link in the top corner, speak to a lawyer and book a consult. Because boy, Alicia, I don't know how many times, even this week, I had consultations with people who, if they'd just done that a year ago instead of now, it would have completely changed the complexity of their situation. And, and in some cases I couldn't fix it. It just, it was not good. All right. This is kind of a follow-up from Narinder. She says, why is IRCC not paying attention to the outside caregiver pilot?
Yeah. And I think there's a few reasons for this. One of them was that the caregiver program was one of the ones where there were multiple instances of employer abuse, of people coming over and working as caregivers and not getting paid properly and having to work for multiple families where they weren't allowed to work for multiple families. And it became an enforcement issue. And so immigration sometimes just says, you know what, we don't have enough officers to go out to individual households or to care facilities and to try to police who's got proper work permits, who's working within the confines of their caregiving occupation, and are the employers properly treating them? It's much easier for ESDC officers to go to an office, right? If you have a whole bunch of workers at a corporate office in some city, you can go there, you can do an inspection, and you can pretty easily see who's on side and who's offside. But with caregivers, because people are working in private residences, it's very hard for officers to properly make sure that employers are following the rules.
Next question is from Zana. And Zana says, "Hello, Alicia and Mark. Hope always you're doing well. What is info sharing and how long does it take to process after it's ready to be assessed?"
And Sana, I think I remember a similar question from you last week, and it's tough to tell. I'm assuming that you're looking at your GCMS notes, like you've done an access to information and privacy request. Yep. And we'd really need to try to understand specifically what's going on by taking a look at those GCMS notes and understanding from you where you're at in your process. So it could be a number of things depending on what the officer has written on your file. Those GCMS notes tend to be, 75 pages or so in length, so we'd need to understand the context.
All right, so this is a question, and I'm going to let you answer it, Alicia, because my answer is probably going to be a little curt. So SJ says, why immigration rolled out 3-year work permit policy for Ukrainians immediately, but didn't do anything for CEC and foreign workers with expiring work permits who have been paying taxes and helping this country grow?
Well, Russia invaded the Ukraine. People are dying. They're civilians, they're women and children because the men generally are not allowed to leave Ukraine. And so we've got a whole bunch of women and children who are fleeing for their lives, and immigration decided they were going to do something to help, and there's an immediate need. And so from a policy standpoint, Canada says we are going to offer a 3-year open work permit. And keep in mind, this is not a refugee claim, right? The CUAET is not a refugee claim. What they are saying is that they will offer Canada as a place for people to live and work on a temporary basis for 3 years. But it's not a free ticket. People still have to come here and find a job and work and contribute to the economy as well. And so, yes, there are a number of Canadian CEC hopefuls and foreign workers who are in Canada who are also working on work permits, and everybody's contributing to the economy. Everybody's going to pay taxes. People who come here on the Ukraine open work permits are also going to be paying taxes. So the government's doing what it can do to try to help out because there's a massive humanitarian crisis right now.
Yeah. And the extent to which they opened up that opportunity and decided to issue 3-year work permits, I know that the government also doesn't believe that everybody that comes here will stay. This is a temporary measure to allow them to come. And when things hopefully settle down and people are no longer being killed and having their homes blown up and their neighbors basically obliterated, that they're probably going to go home to help rebuild their country. So yeah, so we'll leave it at that. Okay, Sean over in Facebook said, is long wait times becoming the new normal in Canada? And then he quotes, according to the Fraser Institute, specialist physicians surveyed report a median wait time of 25.6 weeks between referral from a general practitioner and receipt of treatment. It's so scary. So this covers not just immigration, but hey, I guess we expound on all things. It's completely open season here.
Uh, well, I mean, service standards are definitely an issue across all sorts of types of programs, immigration and medical programs, and what's happening with healthcare and what province you happen to be in as well. So I think wait times are the bane of everybody's existence, no matter what kind of process you're looking at these days. um, for sure having qualified staff, and I think Canada is recognizing that there are labor shortages that are coming, and they are trying to hopefully be a bit proactive. We've talked a little bit in the past about changes to the temporary foreign worker program. So immigration is realizing that the job market is getting tighter. It's harder to find workers in Canada, and hopefully they're going to be steering their immigration policy in a way that we will have doctors and we will be able to help care for people. And I understand with the caregiver situation that that's going to be tricky too, because you need all sorts of caregivers and specialists and medical practitioners.
Excellent. All right. This next question, Alicia, from Hardy is gold. Yes, we now have some nice new overlays. So those of you who are listening, well, you won't be able to see the amazing overlay of explosion of gold bars everywhere, but that's the question that we've got from Hardy here, which is actually a really good question. He says, "Okay, well, there's fee hikes." He says, "Where will the pricing of the fee hikes go? Will IRCC invest it on more personnel?"
And I am not an economic expert, but basically their justification is inflation. And they're adjusting the fees because of the increased cost of everything due to inflation. So it's not actually money in hand. It just means everything is more expensive. And even the current staff that they have to pay is more expensive. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that will translate into more personnel. It just means inflation is terrible and it's hard to deal with for everybody, federal governments included.
Yeah. And a follow up, he says, profit. And one thing I'll tell you, Hardy, is that it is purely, and by law, it has to be cost recovery only. So the government can't make money on the processing fees. By law and legislative provisions, it must be at a level, a break even level. And their position is we're not breaking even with what we're charging. And that's why we have to raise the level because of all the reasons that Alicia has said. And Alicia and I are probably on both sides of the political spectrum, which is kind of fun. And I won't make any comments about why inflation is increasing. We'll just leave it the way it is. All right. Next is, let's see, we're going to jump back here. This one is from Only Education. It says, and this is a good one too. Actually, yeah, it's a pretty good one. So I'll give Only Education a gold celebration as well for that question. Can we show work experience? And this is probably an express entry question. Can we show work experience while studying full time while I was a full time student in the federal skilled worker program?
As long as you weren't in Canada.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And why? What's the difference between if you're in Canada or outside Canada?
You can't claim work experience while you are a full-time student in Canada. It's not allowed, doesn't count. But you are allowed to claim foreign work experience under the Federal Skilled Worker Program for foreign work that you did while you were a foreign student.
All right. Next question's from Joe. This is stretching us here, Alicia. Joe says, do you know any good resources for filling out the personal effects accounting document? The BSF 186A? I thought packing was hard enough, but itemizing is stressing me out.
So this is interesting. I don't often get any sort of customs questions, and I tend to try to refer them out to people who are customs experts because we deal with immigration, we deal with the people, but we don't deal with the goods, right? We don't tend to have specific advice for people bringing in or importing goods and and customs declarations. So I think that's where you're going with this, but you will want to definitely make sure that you're consulting with customs and import duties and making sure that you're bringing in your personal effects properly and declaring whatever has to be declared.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, Joe, is that they do let you group things together. so, so you don't need to say, I have 4 forks and 5 spoons, and you can say, kitchen whatever, kitchen appliances, those kinds of things,
Cutlery.
cutlery, um, you know, clothing. So you can bulk those things together, group them together. So there's the tip. There's the tip for you, my friend. Okay, Gijal or Jigal says, "Hi, I hope everything is well. Do you answer questions for temporary work permits?" Well, I think we can say, Jigal, that right now we're probably doing more work permit related stuff than almost anything else. It just ebbs and flows, right? And lots of LMIAs, lots of intercompany transfer work permits through CUSMA, the International Mobility Program. So we got a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and we answer questions that are general in nature, but if you need specific advice, slide on over and book a consultation, and we'll try to figure out what's going on in your specific circumstances.
And one thing we do a lot of too is you guys will have questions about, for example, my postgrad is expiring. I want to pursue an LMIA. What do I need to do? Well, that type of a consultation is really best suited with your employer. So it's they who you should direct to connect with us. And if you want to jump on that call, that's fine as well. But we find that's far, far more effective than us laying out all the ways that LMIAs, can get tripped up, and suggestions and tips and strategies. They really, really need to be directed to your employer, because it's them that, they that are driving the ship. Okay, let's see what's next here. Hardy is following up with another question, and actually I addressed this one yesterday. He says, IRCC mentioned last year about changing the knock codes. Any updates on that?
And so, yeah, this is the shift from the National Occupation Classification Scheme, the 4-digit codes, to the tier system. But no, there are no updates on that yet. They said it'll happen before the end of the year, but we don't know exactly when.
Yeah. And as you guys have seen, the government, when they make those statements, was not anticipating the Ukraine crisis, creating a whole new emergency authorization to travel program, new applications. In fact, the meeting that I had, I guess it was a week and a half ago, they were at 92,000 applications. And we just heard today one update for those of you who are applying through the Canada Ukraine authorization for emergency travel, that they are issuing counterfoil less processes. So they're not, we are getting reports now that they, I guess, counterfoil less visas. So where the counterfoils that are imprinted in your passport are not specifically being required in some instances. We don't know how far this is going to roll out, but it's a wonderful development, because in some cases, the individual won't need to go back in, provide their passport to have this visa imprinted in it. And we'll see if they choose to roll it out. And I'll be honest, Alicia, for me, I don't understand why they feel they need to do it. There are so many other measures for tracking, especially if they're forcing people to do biometrics already. And if that's the case, and they can make this work for these QET, applications, then why not for work permits in India, where it's at 54 weeks, or study permits, or express entry, So let's see how it rolls. We will see. Okay, Lavanya over in Facebook says, thank you for addressing. How are the opportunities for dentists and medical physicists presently? Would immigration be the next option otherwise? There's the ring, which says head on over to our site. And when you're over there, click on Speak to a Lawyer right in the top right-hand corner, and it will pull you up where you can book a consult with us, because there are so many factors involved with that. And we couldn't even begin to give you advice or direction, unless you have some magical catch-all advice, Alicia, that you want to share.
I mean, I think my magical catch-all advice would be dentists and doctors are, of course, regulated professions. And so you have to make sure that you understand what the requirements are for the province or territory that you plan to live in Canada, because each province or territory has a college, usually of physicians and surgeons. There's dental colleges as well. And so they have different admission requirements, what you have to do to prove your foreign credentials and go through basically an application process to be able to work in that province. And that can sometimes take a while. The other thing that I would say is that depending on the province, there are different schemes in terms of how doctors are paid, and a lot of them are sometimes self-employed technically, and that can cause some interesting wrinkles for your express entry or your federal, you know, hopefully one day if you want to immigrate in terms of your permanent residence options. So the way that that employment is structured is also an issue.
Exactly. All right, next question. This is a super chat. All right, from So. How do you get that handle? That's awesome. Yes, SO, you podcast listeners. Applied for a TRV in Canada 6 months ago. Processing times used to be 4 months. Now it says only 14 days. The member of parliament said TRV and PR are background check. Should I reapply again since the PT is 14 days and it looks like the old file is stuck?
I assume they mean processing time.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you're referring to permanent residence as well. So I don't know if you have a permanent residence application in process and you did a TRV in the meantime.
Probably.
Um, maybe, but yeah, the act of submitting another application these days is probably not recommended. There was a period of time where people had submitted TRV applications and the whole system got bogged down and completely overwhelmed. And immigration basically said, if you had submitted a TRV application within this period to this period, it's gone. Just basically it's buried. It'll never be found again. You might as well resubmit. So maybe if you submitted during that period of time, then maybe you'll just need to resubmit. But I am confused about why you have a PR application in process and what's going on with background checks. It does look like you've talked to a member of parliament to try to figure out what's happening on your file.
Okay, what I'm going to do here is, I'm not sure, I can't find this comment, and it's one that we probably are not going to answer very well, but I'm going to pull it right onto the screen. I pulled it right out of LinkedIn, so we've got a nice, try to get everybody here. So this is a question we can't really answer, but let's see here if I can get this sorted out here. So this one is from Masur, and he says, "Hello, I want a work contract. Thank you."
All right, Mr. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean. Do you want to have a job in Canada? Maybe that's what you mean. And if you're looking for a job in Canada, then Chanel at our office has written a very nice article on, recruiters and ways to possibly do some networking and to try to find jobs in Canada. One of the ways, and I don't know if you're in Canada or not in Canada right now, but if you are in Canada and you are authorized to work and you're in between jobs and you're looking for another job, yep, so here's Chanel's article, all you need to know about job offers in Canada. Make sure that when you are looking for employers, that they are reputable employers. Immigration actually has a blacklist of employers who have failed to comply with their obligations to employees in the past. So cross-reference and make sure that the employer that you're looking at is not on the blacklist, because that's never a good thing. Make sure too that when you are negotiating a contract that it's done fairly according to the labor and employment standards of the province that you want to work in. So do some research, make sure you're not getting taken advantage of in terms of the terms of your work.
All right, next question is from Giuliano, looks like. Giano. Hi, Mark and Alicia. Giano from Brazil. Hope y'all doing well. We all are doing good. I love this.
It's not even Stampede yet, Mark.
It's not even Stampede. But you know what? Y'all works here in Alberta, I guess, as well as anywhere in Canada. So we'll take it. We'll take it. So if me and wife get an ETA in July, is there a possibility to change it to a study and work permit in September if I get, I guess, acceptance to college?
So this is an important question. The general rule, and take a look at the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations, but the general rule is that anybody who's already in Canada is not eligible to apply for a study permit. So the general rule is you have to apply from outside Canada before you come to Canada for your study permit. And I guess it depends on whether you've actually traveled on your ETA and you're in Canada, or you just have applied for and been accepted for that ETA, and you're going to submit your application for the study permit from somewhere outside Canada. So the general rule, you've got to apply for a study permit from outside Canada unless you fit very specific exemptions that would allow you to apply for a study permit inside Canada.
All right. Next one. This is from Hej. Says, I applied for spousal sponsorship PR May last year, but keep delaying due to refugee priority. Well, that's one of the factors for sure. I'm facing CBSA hearing and must get PR before that to stay anyway to urgently expedite my PR. Otherwise, he, I think, has to face the hearing. I hope you have counsel. We'll start with that. I hope you have legal counsel that's directing you. But expediting PR, Alicia.
So CBSA hearing is never good news, right? It means that they're coming after you for some sort of inadmissibility, and if there's a hearing, they're gunning to remove you, right? They want you out, and there are very limited circumstances that you can get a stay on your removal. And oftentimes they won't speed up the spousal sponsorship just to try to keep you here in Canada longer if you've got an imminent removal hearing. So please, please, please go find a lawyer who deals with criminal inadmissibility or any other sort of inadmissibility that you might be facing, and have a consultation with them as soon as you can, because this is a complex situation and it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, next question is from Sam, and he says, hi, I applied for a closed work permit with LMIA. I need to travel to my country urgently. Okay, I'm going to ring that bell again, Sam, and tell you to head over to our website and please, please book a consult, because this isn't something that we're going to be able to just click on that speak to a lawyer right in the top right hand corner of our website, because this isn't something that we're going to be able to really give you a lot of direction on, and there's some pretty significant ramifications. So it says, I need to travel to my country urgently. How can I let them know or contact them? They don't answer the web form or the phone. They sure don't, do they?
Yeah, Sam, this is an issue because if you have a closed work permit and your employer has already obtained the LMIA and your work permit is in process, um, it could compromise your ability to get that work permit issued if you're not where you needed to have been to receive communication from immigration. So this is tricky, and it's going to depend on when you applied and how you applied and what stage you're at and which countries you're traveling to and what you've already done so far to try to notify immigration. But I'm assuming you don't want to lose that closed work permit. So just be careful about how you proceed.
Exactly. All right. Next question here. This is from someone who's in our Express Entry Law private Facebook group. That's why they just show up as Facebook user. Hi, Mark and Alicia. My wife is a Mauritian citizen, but living with me in India after our wedding. Does it make it difficult for applying her spousal open work permit just because she's not living in the country of citizenship?
I'm just trying to figure out why she's eligible for the spousal open work permit.
I'm assuming this individual probably has a study permit, maybe that they're or is applying for a work permit or something along those lines. I'm assuming that's probably the case.
Yeah. So as long as you guys are legally married and as long as the marriage occurred and was valid in the place that it occurred, then the biggest thing is the temporary intent. And so only certain people are eligible to have a spousal open work permit, depending on what the principal applicant status is. So yes, she does have to prove, even on a spousal open work permit, that she has the temporary intent. She's going to go back to her home country after the time that she is granted to be in Canada. And it does make it harder if she's normally living in Mauritius, but now she's living with you in India or anywhere else. It's harder to prove that she's going to go back to Mauritius, especially if you guys are married and she's not been there for a little while. So that does complicate the application for the spousal open work permit, and there'll need to be more evidence of temporary intent and how you guys are navigating that. It's tricky to say because I don't know what kind of application the principal applicant has. So.
All right. So this next question is kind of a fun question. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. So the question from this person on Facebook, is there any way in soccer? So what I'm going to pull up here is the celebration of all celebrations that Canada is going to the World Cup in Dubai. Super stoked about that. So is there any way? Why not? John Herdman has been a rock star as far as a coach. He led our women's soccer team to great heights, who then capped things off with a gold medal in the last Olympics. So why not? We've got a pretty good draw. So any way in soccer? Yes. Now, if you're asking, is there any way to immigrate because you're a soccer player? Book a consult. But that's awesome. Yeah. So big shout out to our men's national team. Super excited. It's been a long time coming. So great. Yeah. Great opportunity. And my friend Nathan works for Imperial in Dubai, Alicia. I don't know if you know Nathan, but anyways, he's got tickets, and unfortunately I'm taking Michaela up to watch the Calgary Flames game in Calgary tonight, which is a 2-hour drive, but I don't think I could convince my wife that it would be worth it to pay for the flights and the trip to Dubai to watch Canada play in the World Cup there. But I can tell you, I will be watching glued to the TV here. So yes, exciting times in Canada. All right. We're just about out of time here. Hina asks the question, I have made an express entry profile and I didn't receive an invitation in the previous year. Should I apply for a study permit, and will that create a problem in study permit process? Every single live stream we do, this question comes up. So I'm going to give him one of these. Are you ready? That's the question that's on fire. That is the question that's on fire. Once again, you podcast listeners didn't see this big fire explosion that I added to the screen. But yes. So Alicia, has your answer changed any from last time?
It's a similar answer from last time. I get this question often, right? People will book a consultation and they'll be wanting to apply for a study permit, and then they say, oh, and I have an expired express entry profile, and I want my spouse and kids to come with me, and I haven't been living in my home country, or I have no property there. So the more factors that mitigate against a temporary intent, or the more factors that say maybe you want to come to Canada permanently, the harder it is to have a study permit application approved. So it's up to you, if there was an express entry profile in the past, to acknowledge that head on. You don't want to just hide it or sweep it under the carpet. You want to say, yeah, I had an express entry profile. Here's what happened. Here's it expired, and I'm not pursuing express entry at this point. But if there is a really good reason why you want to do a program of studies in Canada and it makes logical sense for your education and career history, then maybe you've got an argument.
All right. Next question comes from Raj, and this is a mind-blowing question. Okay, I'm overdoing it with the overlays here. Raj says, hi, Mark. The employer gave my friend, I love questions on behalf of friends. Tell your friend to subscribe to our YouTube channel and get notifications of the lives and join us. So Raj's friend got a job letter stating the position and job duties, but there's no mention of knock code. Is it okay to use that letter or ask for a new one? So, Alicia, how important are knock codes specifically written in the reference letters?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be there, but what does matter is, can you show that the job that you've done actually conforms to what the knock says? And immigration has to look at two things. They look at the lead statement, and most people miss this. It's that opening paragraph when you look at any National Occupation Classification Code job. So that paragraph up at the top is the lead statement, and the job letter has to somehow describe how your friend has met the lead statement, what kind of company they are, and what kind of job your friend does within that company. And then that NOT code also has a whole bunch of mandatory main duties. And there's a difference. Some of them say may. They start with a bullet point that says may. Those ones are not mandatory. But out of the ones that don't have may at the beginning, you've got to make sure, your friend's got to make sure that that job offer letter covers at least 75%, the majority of the mandatory main duties for that occupation. And they're not looking at you at cutting and pasting and having a direct kind of whatever is in the knock. They want to understand what your friend is doing on a day-to-day basis. And if they call up your friend's employer, will they be able to confirm that that's the job they've been doing and it fits within the knock category that they have claimed?
Okay, we're going to finish with this question, which is if you were just to read it normally, you wouldn't think too much of it. But Violetta asks, do I need to have a work visa to apply for express entry? So this is one, Alicia, that isn't actually a bad question. Like, you'd look at it and say, well, of course you don't. But in reality, in the world we're in right now, what's your answer to this one?
Yeah, I mean, in reality, there haven't been any federal skilled worker draws for such a long time. When they do open them up, practically, in order to get enough points, you probably are going to have Canadian work experience, or you're going to have a PhD and also be fantastically language endowed in terms of English and French skills. So practically, you probably do need to have Canadian work experience for a lot of people to be able to get enough points to hopefully be able to be scooped up on the CRS draws if and when they open, no program specified. Um, so for sure, you could create a profile if you have foreign work experience. And maybe there will be a federal skilled worker draw where the points come down enough, maybe within many months, for you to be able to get an invitation to apply. But people who have Canadian work experience for sure have a better chance.
All right. Now people know that it's coming to an end. So now they're forcing me to pull their questions up. Okay. Samrat says, hello, Mark and Alicia. I do follow you both, even after being approved for PR. Oh, we're going to do it right here. That's a fire response. We like that one. Samrat is on fire. He said, what options do I have if I do not receive my first PR card, even after 15 months?
Uh-oh.
I'm ringing the bell. After 15 months of your PR being approved and am in Canada, have reached out to IRCC as well as the MP, but to no help. This is insane. There is no reason in the world you should be waiting 15 months for your PR card. Alicia, any specific thoughts other than booking a consult with us and
Yeah.
allowing us to dig in? Because this is just not acceptable. That's insane.
Yeah, if you look at the processing times for PR cards, I think it's like 130 days or something like that. It's not 15 months.
No.
Something must have gone wrong. They may have lost the application. It might not have been received in the mail if you sent it. It depends on when you submitted it because there was some crazy stuff happening during COVID. So it would require talking to you to figure out hopefully what happened, but that doesn't look good. And it might be that you have to start all over again and submit a new PR card application.
Yeah. Things get lost. They do. And we've seen a train wreck when it comes to the photos themselves. So often if there's delays, there's something going on, probably with the photos not being accepted. Now, Alicia, I remember it was last year, they had toyed or at least teased us with this software technology that they were going to be instituting, which I haven't seen yet, that will actually scan the photo in advance to ensure that it would comply with what they were looking for up front. So if it didn't work, the upload would fail. But I haven't seen it yet. And my goodness, that's, if there's an update in terms of technology that the government could roll out more than anything else, it would be that.
Yeah. Yeah, it always makes my blood run cold when I'm talking to an applicant and they have to submit those photos, or they're trying to upload digital photos. And, we can try to look to see if it looks like the resolution is off. And they give you, if you're doing an online application, they give you a little information button to specify how many kilobytes and what your resolution has to be. But it always just chills me to think that we've spent, so many hours and so much work on putting together a substantive application, and the whole thing could simply be returned or returned after many, many months if there's the smallest issue with a photo, or if the millimeters are off on a photo. It pains me. So yeah, I really hope they do implement a software that will pre-screen photos ahead of time.
Indeed. Okay, the very, very, very last question comes from Mo. And Mo says, I received an acknowledgement of receipt for an online citizenship application. When can I start using the online tracker? Right away, or should I give it some time?
You could try. Try using it right away. See if you get anything, but it might take a little bit to show up in there.
All right, Alicia, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. I'll give a round of applause here for all of the great questions we've had. But thanks for joining me today. We've got some videos that we are going to be rolling out. One is the video version of Alicia's top 10 reasons your study permit application is refused. We've got another one that we're going to be uploading from Chanel on the OINP, and just some high-level thoughts about using that program for permanent residence in Canada. It's going to be one of many that we're going to be covering over the next little while that are not going to be live streams, but they're going to be updated, or I should say recorded episodes that we're going to upload to the YouTube channel. So it will be YouTube only, although we may upload it to Facebook as well. And so stay tuned for those. And Alicia and I are going to try to turn around a quick little one on the pros and cons, things you need to be aware of when you decide to list your spouse as non-accompanying in the context of express entry. So thanks so much. I'll end with this nice comment from Colleen. It says, Alicia is so professional, unlike Mark, who's a little bit of a character. No, she didn't say that, those who are listening on the podcast. She says, Alicia is so professional. Love her style. Thank you, Mark and Alicia. So thank you guys for everyone. And John says, thank you for pro bono legal advice. And Ami says, happy Easter to you too. And happy Easter to all of you as well. Thanks, Alicia.
Sorry, guys. I'll be gone next week for Easter. So.
So no consults next week. I'll be around though.